Welcome back to the No Name Podcast, homies. We got one today. Did you guys know that you can run scenarios in ChatGPT AI to figure out what the hell the buyers on the other end are doing? Yeah, we're gonna get into that because Jesse did it. Um, and then we got a couple other updates. You guys have been following us on some of these lawsuits and crazy things going on. Plus, you just made $50,000 in like 5 minutes, and it drives me insane. We're going to tell people how you did that by buying a foreclosure house. Still pissed you did that, but I'm pumped too. First of all, I want to get into dude, you hit me up the other day. You're like, yeah, I asked ChatGPT AI what the buyers were going to do. I'm like, why would you even think of doing that shit? I can't believe it. How did you think of that?
Well, I always like punch in scenarios into Chat GPT and it's like all about the prompting. So like I try to like create all of these um folders or whatever prompt threads of different scenarios just so I can always go back and reference it and see like what happened. So we had this the lawsuit house went back on the
This is the
market.
lawsuit house that we've been discussing, correct?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like 30-second synopsis on that situation and then what led you to the chat GPT. Like what is that?
So so we listed that house in March. First weekend got a full price cash offer at 1.2 million. We were
Mm-hmm.
under contract for 90 days. It was non-contingent. All contingencies were lifted. Seller said that they wanted to sell their house, but they didn't have to sell their house. They gave us their bank account statements and everything. All was good. I kept reaching out to their agent every other week. Are you guys going to still sell or buy this house? Your house is not under contract. Yeah, we're still going to close. We're still going to close. Blah, 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 blah. Um, and then literally right before we went to close, they sent a message asking if they could move the offer to a contingent offer in contingent of their house selling and move into the property, paying like next to nothing. And so the seller said no. They ended up asking for all their earnest money back. Seller said no. Then they asked for half of it back. Seller said no. So then finally they terminated the deal and gave up all their earnest money, 30K. So we go back on the market and activity's been crazy. And we got an offer the first weekend and it was for 950. And I was like, that's stupid. Like, let's just counter back at full price, which we did.
At
And I was just
1.2 million.
1.2 million.
So they came in like
Yeah. They came in at
250K.
950, 30-day inspection, 60-day closing. Dude, they were like literally asked for everything. And even the agent, I said, what's up with all this? Like, why do you want a 30-day inspection? And the agent just said, everything's negotiable. I can't say anything else. So I knew that they were like asking for everything, thinking that we were going to concede some stuff. So I just stood firm on 1.2 and kept sending them back the counter, 30-day close, 7-day inspection, release earnest money after inspection contingencies, all the things.
Wait, let
So
me
they can't,
stop you real quick because this
yep.
is where you separate from everybody else. Okay.
Yeah.
You countered back at full price. I think like people I've worked with outside of you or whatever, they're going to go, what would you like to do? And then that
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
puts it into us. And it's like, my thought is okay, now we've got a buyer. Let's just get him up to like 1.11. But you're like, fuck that. No, 1.2. Why did you counter at full price? Like,
Well, so before we went on the market, I did all the research on active list to close ratios. And so every house that was over, this house is 5,000 plus square feet. So every house took about 120 days to sell and it all sold for 99% of list price. So I knew that these houses were going to take some time to sell, but I knew that we priced the house. Average price per square foot was say like 390. We
mm-hmm.
priced it at 230, dude. Like they were aggressively pricing this house. And so we were already below market value. It's just a unique situation.
Right.
So we put it on and if you ever go through the real estate negotiations class, they even say is when you're writing a counter offer, you look and see what's available at that price point. So if you're the best house at that price point, your value is what it is. Like everyone always wants to look at pendings and comp and solds. Solds are great for appraisals and pendings are great to see like what the market activity is, right? But really when people are shopping, they're shopping for active. So think about the way you shop when you're shopping on your app. You're literally just typically people set a price point or a little bit higher and then they don't set all the parameters because they're getting a wide range up front and they're just looking for the best value at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you're like, I really need, then you start adding in the bedrooms, whether or not you want a pool, you know, so on and so forth. You get a little bit more granular, but up front, people just set a wide spectrum because I think a lot of people are just looking for value. And I know when I'm looking and my budget's 1.2, I literally just turned to 1.2 and I'm wanting to see everything that's out there to get a good grasp on the market. So I sent him over the comps and I just said, here's everything that's available. We're literally $150 a foot below market value. Here's everything that's currently pending also, and here's everything that's sold. And by the way, here's also the comps for the neighborhood, and here's also the comps for this specific area. We like hit the box on every single thing. So what the average person's thought when it comes to writing offers and negotiations is, let's just say it's at 1.2 and they come in at 1 million. I'm just using round numbers. What
Yep.
everyone thinks is like, okay, let's just meet them in the middle
Right.
at 1.1. Well, then what happens is the buyer's agent then comes back in and splits that difference in half. So then it's at like 1.075 or 1.05. So then that's your new benchmark. And that's what happens. So that it's always the person that makes the first counter that exposes themselves.
Yeah.
So my philosophy is one is if we're priced at fair market value or even really aggressive and the sellers are willing to wait and we know what's going to happen, then just hold tight. The right buyer will come through. And I also believe that a real buyer that wants the house will spend whatever it takes to get that house.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've done this so many times. My buyers that are actively wanting the house, they're not going to let 50 grand stand in the way of their dream house, right? You're the same way. You would never let 50 grand stand in your way. And I'm the same way too. So we countered back at full price and then they came up to 1.1. So they went from 950 to 1.1. And must I remind you, I'm typing this whole thing in ChatGPT as well.
Yeah.
Just because now I'm like in this whole thing where I just want to really remember these markets. And so I'm typing it into ChatGPT and it says like, what will the buyers do? So we countered back at 1.1. We countered back again at full price. And actually, so then I typed in the ChatGPT, like, what will the buyers do? And this is where it got real interesting, is it said the buyers are either going to walk away or they will like basically, they said that the buyers most likely gave out four scenarios, but the one that said most likely was going to happen is it said the buyer's going to walk away and expect you, not in these exact words, but expect you to then come after them to put them in the power position. And I was like, holy crap. So it said either A, they would accept your offer, B, they would walk away and then want you to come after them to put them
Mm-hmm.
in the power position. So I just told this, and that's kind of like what I've dealt with in the past before too. And literally they didn't respond to us, didn't do anything. They left. Time goes on, dude. A week later, guess what? Boom, they hit me up. And guess what they did? They submitted another offer for 1.150.
They're coming up.
Yep, coming up. So we countered back. So this was a verbal though, and then what they said is we're looking at two houses. One spouse likes yours, one spouse likes the other, and the other one's at 1.150. If you guys will do 1.150, we're rolling with you guys. So in my mind, I'm like, if they're giving us the edge and they're both the same, they definitely like ours better, right? Are they really going to let a little bit of money now stand in the way? So they're selling themselves this house in their own mind. So as of right now, that's where we're at. They haven't sent anything over, and they've given us the 1.150, but we're standing firm.
Is there any other interest in it?
Oh, we had so much interest.
Okay, so
There
now
was
you feel a little bit better about that because if you haven't heard anything, you're kind of like that's 50K.
so I did the open houses over the weekend. They're friends of ours. Something else was going on. Family was busy.
I was
So I
gonna
was like, I'll
say,
just go
wait,
to the
wait,
open.
what? You're doing open houses?
There was probably 20 people through. One guy showed up and he was on FaceTime with his mom and grandma for an hour. And he's actually an agent and he's flying them up to come see the house in person. Another couple they said that the husband said he wanted the house. They actually came by yesterday for their second showing. The agent called me and said it wasn't, they ended up writing an offer on another house in the neighborhood. They said it was a little too dark for them. But Rachel, my wife, was like, "Hey, are you?" A lot of people said it was really dark in there, so I went through and had all the light bulbs changed to bright lights, and because they were like the softest tone, really yellow, really gross, so I had them all changed out. And she's like, "Are you gonna have everyone come back?" I was like, "There, that ship sailed." I said, somebody will buy this house that's been through the open house. I already know it. Dude, I literally just got a text message an hour ago from an agent. Somebody said, hey, I was in your open house this weekend and talked to you. I would love to come back and look at the house tonight. We're thinking about putting in an offer. And I'm like, do you have an agent? They're like, nope. I said, well, I actually signed a single agency on this property, so I can't represent you. So I'll bring a buyer's agent with me. So
And who will that just be anybody?
I called the team.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now they submit an offer. They're gonna call you and probe probably now. Do you have offers in hand? Where you stand?
Oh
Right?
yeah. I tell everyone the price is right online. It's right there. Just submit the
Yeah,
offer. I'm very simple. I tell this to everyone.
I know.
If you send me the offer with the number that's listed and you give me a 1 hour deadline, I will have it signed and sent back to you within an hour. Everyone's always blown away that I always get them. They always think I'm joking with them. But I said, you give me 60-minute timeline, I will have the offer signed and sent back to you.
Dude, that's insane. So now we got a couple other properties we want to talk about, but this goes into like days on market changing too, because I think this is and me personally selling flips and stuff coming out of like COVID, it's a hard pill to swallow that you actually have to sit there, but you can sit there and still get full price. Like we came
Mhm.
out of this thing where if it's sat for a week, you're fucked. Like you're getting half,
Oh yeah.
and it's not like that. It's a lesson learned because it's mental.
Dude, I have the hardest time with it because I'm looking at it every day. I'm like, oh, it's
Right.
it's 2 weeks away. It's 2 weeks. And you know what the sellers actually told me yesterday? Because I said, hey, we had all this great activity. We've had all these showings now because it was really slow with Father's Day weekend and everything and graduations. And they're like, we've only been on the market for 2 weeks. They're like, what? Like, it's literally only been a minute. They're like, you told us it was going to be 4 months at the beginning, so we were prepared for 4 months. But in my mind, I'm like, man, the first 3 weeks are the most important. And so this time is like driving me nuts.
Right. But why then? Um, why did you price it that low then? Is it not that nice of a house or
Well, so it's a unique house in the sense that it's in Idaho, there's not really many basements. So this house has a fully finished basement and it's all main floor living. So it's 4 on the main with 3 full bath. It's a corner lot, but the exterior was this puke yellow. It was disgusting. And so they painted the exterior, which looks nice, but inside there's like a bunch of different mismatched colors. It's like a light yellow on the walls. The kitchen and living room are gray. Um, it's got a black island. It's got some black tile in the master. So if somebody wanted to put 150 into it, dude, that thing would be worth one. There's plenty of room to make money on it or even
yeah.
build in instant equity. It's a great community too. It's just a very unique situation for the right buyer. And
So
5,000 square feet is a little
okay.
rare for that community.
Yeah, that's the first thing that you established right there, or one, I guess, as a listing agent, is you got them to price it right. So that now I guess it goes in. We've been talking a lot on this podcast about like getting more clients and
Because
it
because what I
comes down
what
to
I
those experiences. Now they're having an awesome experience with you.
so when I went through the listing process, going back to like what we talked about a couple podcasts ago when we were talking about the listing process. So I had already done all my homework up front and sent them the listing presentation or the CMA in advance. So then we went through everything and I showed up to their house. They said right when I walked in, they're like, we just know we want to hire you just to let you know that up front. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. So then we were sitting at the table. I started going through the comps and I said, do you guys want to go through all these or do you just want me to tell you what we need to price at to sell the house? Because I thought they were going to like want to price it super high. And they said, no, we just want you to tell us what we need to sell it at. So I was
Yep.
like, 1.2 is where you need to be.
Dude, you would pay a lot of money to have all of your clients say that because you have told me for the past 5 years, you tell me exactly what the fucking house is going to sell for. People typically have a little bit of a better, higher opinion, and it
Oh
doesn't
yeah.
always work out. And this is pre-COVID. I remember sitting in like condos and townhouses, and you're like, this is the price it will sell at. I already know it, and they want that extra 10, 15 grand sits. And
Well,
then
when
you
I
get
sold,
desperate,
oh yeah, dude, like look at Mason Hill. He started that thing at 2.4 and now we're at 1.78.
which is where you told them,
600K.
yeah,
It's where I told him we needed to start at.
Yep.
And now now he's like, well, I didn't really want to sell it then, but now I really want to sell it. Well, it
Dude.
even goes into show, like when I sold your house, remember I kept telling you, I said, as soon as there's no other houses on the market at this price point, it'll sell for this price point. So
Mm-hmm.
then like, boom, it was at 375 or whatever. And then we got the offer like for, I don't know, I think it was like 400 or maybe we
400.
listed at 400 and it sold for 412.
And in a couple hours. Cause that was, I remember you telling me, and that's where like my issue is with other agents is when an offer comes in or when it's time to list, they ask me my opinion. And I'm like, that's the fucking last thing I want to give is my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because I've been spoiled with you, to where it's like I'm doing this. And you told me, I'm like 350. If I got 350 right now, I would be doing backflips. This is back years ago. And you're like, I'm selling that thing for like 400. And I'm like, dude, I don't want to sit here. I'm already moved. I want to move to Texas. I'm out. You're like, no, trust me. And we listed it on a Friday. And by that night, you actually took a kind of offer and then a really good offer. And you took the kind of offer and told them, we got another offer. So my client said, if you do 400 and whatever it
Yeah, it was
was,
412.
412, he'll take it off the market tonight. And they're like, perfect, we'll do that. I'm like, I remember sitting in my driveway drinking beers and my neighbor was there. He's like, you did not just sell this for that. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, if I could get 375 for mine, I'll sell tomorrow. I'm like, Jesse will come right now. So you did.
Yeah, I know. We sold their house too.
And you sold that one too.
Yeah, yeah, because like obviously you're looking at competition on market as well.
Yep.
So if there's no inventory, remember because I remember thinking if there's not one house between 350 and 4 in this like city, like we're the only show in town. Like this is a huge advantage. And I remember just like seeing that perfect window and it was like boom, it's time to roll. And then
Well,
yeah, we get
I got okay. This helps me. Half this podcast is helping. Like I have a new flip coming up, and there's kind of two shittier houses that are listed 268, 275. One of them, another one just sold on 530 for 280. It's a 4 bed, 2 bath. It's a little nicer than my flip. Like front is, but the inside of mine's better. The ARV was set at like 235. So this is when I had my panic attack that, oh, I'm screwed. Neither one of the 260 or 275 is pending yet. They're kind of junky. They're over. I think they're asking too much. So like in my regard, I'm like 250, 260s. I am jumping for joy. I'm going to make 40, 50K on this thing. It just hearing that, and I'll have to do this on the side with you and you can look at it. But like, are you immediately coming underneath those ones
yeah,
now? Because now they're it. Okay, you are.
yeah. So this like kind of reminds me of the house I did in Sherwood.
Right.
So when there are two other houses popped up, I was going to list that house at 599. And one house came on at 640 that was horrible, and then one my neighbors came on at 635. So I'm like, these guys just all set the market for me. So I came in at 625, fully remodeled, gutted to the studs,
Yeah.
and we had massive activity, and then I sold it for 630. Both of those houses now are sitting on, one of them's pending at 599. And I told them, because actually when they went on the market, the listing agent called me. Actually, they wrote a contingent offer on a house in Northeast Portland. The Northeast Portland listing agent called me and he said, hey, I saw your listing is pending. How much do you think the house next to you is really worth? And I said, it's got to be listed at 599. They way overshot the market. And
Yeah.
I said, it's because the first one set the market at 640 and
Yeah.
they're overpriced too. I said, I was going to come on at 599 fully remodeled.
Yeah.
Your house isn't remodeled. And so he's like, that's exactly what I thought. I said, they all did me a favor though.
Yeah.
So they're going to look crappy and you're going to look like the hero.
Yeah, because the one sold at 280,000. It was on the day on market was 41 days, which is a little bit under actually for that area. So 280, if I get that, I am balling out. But that's probably what happens is it triggered those other two houses to go, well, that just sold for 280.
Yep.
And so they listed at 269 and 275. And here in my mind, I'm like, I hope I get 230, 240 to break even. But yeah, I think if I come in at like 260, because we're gonna look amazing, like open, constant, and we have one extra bedroom too. So that's where I'm like, it's tricky, and that's why I wish I had you. And guys, I'm gonna take a sec. We got some other crazy stories to get into. Um, if you have questions for the podcast, info@jacksonwilkie.com. And as well, we do our weekly meetings with our EXP downline. So Jesse's actually, he does this every single week with our EXP agents and our downline. like those crazy condo market listings in Colorado, you helped our guys sell within a week. So if you guys want this, like, and you want to learn more about partnering with us, it's not just coming to EXP. Like you're going to learn from a mastermind how to, that's why everybody 10Xs. So email us info@jacksonwilkie.com, jesse@realagentnow.com, and then we will help you grow. But it's this kind of stuff you'll have in your corner. But with that being said, dude, it's like, I'm like, God, do I go just a touch above because they're only 3-bedroom houses and I'm a 4-bedroom? Again, maybe we can do this on the side, but that psychology you have is crazy
Well,
because you know
the
it like instantly.
we just got an offer this morning, and our listing is 5 beds, 3 baths, and it's at 775. And I told them when they listed it wasn't worth more than 780, and they wanted to list at 799, which they just bought it like 2 years ago. So I was
Yeah.
like, whatever, you can try it out. And then the offer came in, so they lowered it to 775. An offer just came in at 750, and the agent, she said, I'm having a hard time finding the value of this house. And I just said, well, you're not the appraiser, so we'll let the appraiser decide and dictate the value of the home. And she's like, we'll write a counter. So I went in and looked, and I only found one. I already knew what the comps were, but the comps, like, we were priced low for the average price per sold in that neighborhood. But there was a new construction that just sold across the street, but it was only a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, relatively the same size for 785. So she was trying to use that. And I said, well, it's only a 3-bed, we're 5. So I said, give us, $10,000 a room, and then subtract $25,000 for it being a resale. And that gives me a value of 770. I said, that's really what our value probably is.
Mm-hmm.
And so she agreed. And so that's where we're going to land, is 770.
Got it. All right. Info@jacksonwilkie.com is the questions. All right, Jesse, let's keep rolling. So these sellers that the $1.2 million house we've been talking about, they love you now. They reach out and they're like, hey, we got something else.
2 others.
2 others. And they're
Yep.
crazy as hell too. Ashland, what? Because now we're going to start breaking into where you really got to throw in your creative hat because there's a lot of crazy stuff with the Ashland house.
Well, there's yeah, it's a duplex. And I was just reading that book Shift from Gary Keller also. And he actually, it was funny because I never read that
Why
one
are you
before.
reading Shift?
Well, because the market's shifting. So I figured I might as well get all the knowledge I can. It's not as good as the $1 million real estate agent, I'll tell you that much. But what it does tell you, and there's exactly what I was saying last week, which was like understanding your contracts, making sure that you have your clients on lock, dude, your sellers and buyers. Like, you want these people in the best positions, and just understanding everything. So yeah, so they said, yeah, we want to sell this house. There's 2 tenants in there. So I'm like, okay, cool. And so I call it up this agent in Ashland that I do work with, and I'm like, hey, we got this house. These sellers want to sell. Like, what do you think the value is? And so we came to the value, and he said, I need to get inside. So I said, okay. So I told them, hey, we need to get inside. And they said, well, we have one tenant in one side. That's super nice. And then we have another tenant in the other side that's kind of gone MIA for the last couple months. And I said, okay. And they said, and there's a problem with that. And I was like, well, what's that? And they said, well, we did a seller carried financing deal with him, and he hasn't paid us. And so now we want to evict him.
You're
So
like,
I said,
oh.
I
And the
said,
podcasters can't hear this, but you're smiling from ear to ear and you're grinning.
oh, I already knew what was coming. I was like, that's not a tenant anymore. That's like you were the bank now. And so they were like, what do you mean? I said, well, you did a seller carried financing deal. He is no longer your tenant. And I said, is he collecting rents from the other tenant too? And they're like, yeah. So I'm like, this guy can literally be living in your house, collecting rents from the other people, not paying you. And you have to now go through an eviction process. I mean, not an eviction, a foreclosure process. And they were just like, what do you mean? So I told them, you just need to contact an attorney. I
Yeah.
said, this is going to get wild real quick. So the agent down there was calling me saying, hey, when am I going to get in this house? And I had to fill him in on what was going on, and connected them to the attorney. And the attorney's like, let me review all the contracts and this and that. And this goes into even hiring a professional to do things, dude. So I can't really talk about it because it's like an ongoing thing. But let's just say that the contract was written in such a way that the attorney had to recuse himself from the deal and advise them to hire another attorney in the county that the situation was happening in, because he said it was going to take multiple trips to the courthouse. And if the person doing the seller carried financing wants to contest it, that it's going to end up in the courts for years.
And that's like the new hot, like everybody in
Yep.
the world is calling and subtoing and seller financing. And
Yep.
could you see this causing any
Oh,
kind of
dude. I literally texted everyone I knew that does sub twos and I said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this situation?" And everyone's like, "No, no, 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 no." And this is like been a core fear of mine from like sub two worlds.
yeah.
It does never benefit the seller. I don't care what they say and how they spin it. I don't think it benefits the seller at all. And this just goes to show that you better like, it doesn't matter if it's a real estate. I think this is what we're going to start seeing too with the buyer's agent thing going on. Which also reminds me is that it was just announced yesterday that one of the biggest private MLSs in the country is rumored to be selling to a private equity firm in
Wait.
Colorado.
What the hell does that mean?
It's the Colorado MLS. I don't know the name of it. You could probably Google it. There was a rumor. It said it was an evolving story, that there was rumor that they're selling to a private equity firm.
What, like, break
It'd be
that
like,
down. What the hell? Why?
dude, it'd be like BlackRock buying the MLS. Like, I don't know. They must see a reason why they want to get into the game.
To a private equity company?
Yeah. Just type in Colorado private equity or Colorado MLS sells to private equity.
All right. We're going to look at this. Like the first thing that comes up in Google is association owners of RE Colorado say now is the right time to sell, and decoupling MLSs and associations can provide protections and improve operations.
Yep. Click on the news tab.
Proposed sale of RE Colorado.
Yep. That's
20.
it.
Yeah. Oh, from Inman. I don't know if I'll be able to
Yep.
read this. You have the login. I don't, but we'll find another one. Here's one. In a
Oh,
deal that
dude.
has left RE Colorado leaders reeling, the Realtor Association owners of the nation's 16th largest MLS have quietly agreed to sell it to a private equity backed company. Shelley
Oh,
Vincent, vice chair of RE Colorado, on Monday night confirmed that the owners of the MLS, the Denver Metro Association, DMAR, and the South Metro Denver Realtor Association shared a letter of intent to sell RE Colorado to a newly formed LLC from outside of the real estate space.
yeah. And just so everyone's clear, we're doing this podcast on June 26th, which is 2 days away from the deadline for everyone to file their agreements to do the settlement for the NAR lawsuit. So there's still some wild cards out there. And I just saw that there was just an alert announced that Compass, EXP, Redfin, Weikert's, and United Real Estate filed a motion to dismiss the Batten 2 lawsuit, which is actually the buying side antitrust lawsuit,
Hmm.
which I think is a complete joke, because the Batten 1 was when they tried to say that they tried to do the same thing that the sellers were doing. And then they said, well, the buyers don't pay the commission, so you can't really do that. So then they changed their strategy and said they're suing the industry for saying that agents were saying that working with the buyer's agent was free when it's not. So now that's their stance. So now um, Compass, EXP, Redfin, Weikert's, and United Real Estate are saying that they have no grounds to stand on and that it's a parrot argument.
So here by Friday, we're gonna hear some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. You were just kind of saying that. So one is the two highlighted in this articles is the MLS future at risk. And it's funny how they word that, like the way the letter of intent was worded. Vincent added, the MLS might not continue to be an MLS long term. Our attorneys are freaking out, she said. They never have seen anything like this. And then the next big bold one says, bad blood between MLS and its owners. There is a tremendous amount of bad blood between the MLS and its association owners, Vincent said. In our efforts to preserve ourselves legally, which is kind of what you were talking about, we pushed back continuously on some of the questionable rules imposed upon us. So they're just kind of like selling out, like, let's take our money and run.
Well, you have to remember that half of the MLSs are owned by NAR. It's it's such a complicated situation, and like I've always said, clear cooperation was the Achilles heel of this whole deal. They should have never imposed, and I actually heard someone else talking about this. Actually, it was Ricky Carruth, and he said that once they removed the $1 mandatory payout for commissions on the MLS, they should have just stopped there. And the reality is that should have never been a rule. I don't know how you can tell anyone that commissions are negotiable when you're mandating a $1 minimum. When they imposed that whole rule, dude, I was like, this is the end of it. This is like, I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know it would lead to this. But I remember just thinking, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I actually wrote NAR like 6 times.
Of course you did. What did you say?
I said I basically said I don't really think that this whole $1 minimum, when you sit here and tout that we're commissions are negotiable, when you're mandating a $1 minimum is not negotiable. Like
Yeah.
that opened yourself up. And this is what my problem has been since day one. They're all a bunch of dinosaurs that all have dinosaur attorneys and they work in the past. And this is like something else I've learned in the like being involved a little bit in like the law world recently a few times for different things is there's these old school attorneys and there's these new school attorneys. And even the new school attorneys talk about using these AI tools that they have. Like one tool is called Lexis and they're like, it's not perfect, but it gets you a lot quicker. They're quicker. And you can just see the turning of the guard. But I do also feel, I don't want to get into politics about this whole thing, but we do have an election coming up in a couple months, and the first debate is tomorrow night. But all of this stuff happened with um the new DOJ and everything.
Hmm.
So look at what's happening to the opponent of the nominee. Look at what's happening in the real estate world. Because this whole thing started when Obama became the president, and then it got put on pause once Trump became the president. And then once Biden became the president again, they opened it all back up. So they're really trying to force this thing through. And even there was like a case a couple week ago where it was a sealed case and the DOJ, it was against the real estate industry, NAR, and they basically put it forth in front of their own courts to get it opened back up. And it was basically the DOJ was basically the plaintiff and they were the freaking judge. Do you
Hmm.
think they're going to not allow themselves to reopen this case? Like this is like corruption at the highest level. And I don't know why they obviously don't want home ownership to be such a thing. Um, there's so many different like reasons of why they wouldn't want this to happen, but the only thing I can think of is one, it messes with the economy. Think about buying a house, how many people are impacted? Like
Right.
we just talked about this the other day. You're going to buy cable, utilities, landscaping, roofers, siders. Like, dude, this is like 500 people that touches a house.
Yep.
This is an economy buster, dude.
Economy buster. And yeah, wait, you said a minute ago that this was opened up and started in the Obama administration. This
Yeah, they started the whole investigation and whatnot back during the Obama administration.
what was their goal with it? Like, who benefits from it?
Large investors like BlackRocks of the world, because
Oh,
because if you make buying homes harder, and it's the think about when you have money, dude. Okay, I just thought about this morning. So when I go to the bank or when I went and bought the house at the auction that you said you were going to talk about,
oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I paid 200,000 bucks cash. I'd never had an easier time in my life. So I'm like, okay, when you have cash, things are a lot easier. So it's really just separating out the lower class from it's basically eliminating the middle class. You always hear that. Oh, they're just trying to destroy the middle class.
Hmm.
So when you can create a divide of wealth, it gives the government more power because more people have less money. People with less money feel the need to rely on the government more. And I just heard this saying yesterday, which I'm going to take this to my grave, is it says an uninformed majority will always override an informed minority. So if you get these masses of people feeling that they need the government, guess what they do?
Yep.
I mean, that's what they
Policy.
always talk about is America's heading towards a country of rentals.
Yeah, which is going to be crazy, right? So I mean, now we got a podcast full of real estate agents, everybody shitting in their pants, but I like what can you do?
Well, it's not
could
going to happen everyone acts like it's going to happen overnight. It'll be a
exactly.
slow burn.
But
And
what is like a real estate agent? What do you do right now today,
put the pedal to the metal and just go for broke.
Yeah, for real though.
Make hay when the sun's shining, dude. And this is like what I said this morning in the coaching calls. I said, everyone always wants to like make sure that their agents get enough leads on the teams and things like that. But what happens when the market shifts and you're the team lead and you're not, there is no leads. Like we're all in this market together. We're all on the waves together.
Right.
Like you're not gonna change the market and you're not gonna change the interest rates.
You always get my mind going.
You got to create your own destiny. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's why it's so important to be diversified, whether it's investing. Tony Robbins has that book, The Holy Grail of Investing, and he talks about like you better be invested in 12 different you know, things because if one goes down, you don't want it to be like your whole portfolio. But what do you hear every major investor say is that they're heavily hedged into real estate, right?
Yeah.
And because that's where you see the biggest growth, it's
Right.
typically the most fun, all the things. So as a real estate agent, when I talk to the financial advisors and things like that, they always talk about real estate agents really treat this as a transactional business and they don't build for the future, and that's why I always say is you never see agents retire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really sad. So it's really fun to get those big fat paychecks, but a lot of people just blow them.
It's funny that it's like the agents run into the best deals. Me and you've gotten into investing in the last 6 months to a year, and like they have the best deals, but they're just thinking of getting that commission. It's like you could, dude. I had this chick reach out to me. She's actually I think in the San Antonio market, but works all of Texas. And she's like, I saw you're looking for properties. What's your price point? Your buy bought all this stuff, which you get a lot. And I'm like, whatever. But she did something that like nobody else had. She actually took everything that I was saying, found a bunch of stuff on the market that had been there a long term, play, and was giving me insights on like what offers. And she's like, I'll write every offer. I'm like, dude, a struggling agent right now could like kill it with investors. You know what I mean?
Well, I get this company it's actually a national company. Joe, I think
Mm-hmm.
Joe was telling us, remember? And what they
Mm-hmm.
do is they go out and they write offers on houses that have been sitting forever.
Yeah, it's the We
And
Buy
then,
Ugly Houses. It's the most
yeah.
profitable
And then
wholesaling company in the world.
so they get them under contract and then they send them out to their investors and it's like $5,000 or $10,000 below the list price,
Mm-hmm.
which I laugh. But they actually sent me one. It was by our old house in Beaverton and Tigard. And I looked at it and they had it at 400 or no, maybe it was 450. And I saw it just closed. Someone bought it from their list and they fully remodeled it. It was beautiful. And they just closed on it for 625.
That's pretty good. As long
Yeah.
as you keep
And
them costs
it
down.
probably took 100,000, but whoever flipped it super quick.
So how did you make 50,000 bucks in about 10 minutes?
Oh,
Hold on. I'm gonna preface it because even like your wife said, well, you made 50 grand in 10 minutes doing that. It's like, well, I've seen behind the scenes, like Jesse's an absolute lunatic. He has spreadsheets for everything. That's why people that get coached under him like explode because he can get his hands on them. But you built these crazy spreadsheets that breaks every single property down to the penny, so you know
yep.
what you're buying. So that's the preface that you were looking at a lot of them. But me and you were literally on a Zoom call bullshitting. You're like, oh, this is a cool property. I think I'm gonna buy it. You
Yeah. The day before.
yeah.
So the day before, I'm like looking through this list because I get this list of foreclosures. And the thing that sucks right now is, and I was showing you how many of these actually make it to the auction table. And it was one a week if you're lucky out of 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I go through the list, and the first thing I look at is the column that says debt owed. And then the second thing I look at is their quote unquote ARV. And then we look and see if they have pictures. And then I look and see if it's gotten a first mailing of affidavit notarized. Do they have a second lien? Like all of these things. Well, on this one specifically, it said that they owed 100 and I think it was
79
15,000.
or
No, it was
17.
like 119,000.
Yeah, 17 or 19. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever the number was. I remember it said that they owed 110,000 and then it said total debt was 119. So if you see that, it typically means that their mortgage is 110 and that there's probably $9,000 in additional liens out there. So when you see that variance, that's why. So when we went to go look at the pictures, there was no pictures there. And you were even saying, "Oh, you're like, there's no pictures? Like, yeah, you're not going to see it?" And I'm like, "No, dude." I was like, "This is how I do it. I'm going to just look on Google Earth and look and see when the Google Earth stamp is." And that's a whole nother thing, because if you go to Google Earth itself, it'll say it's like fresh. So you have to go to Google, type in the address, and then the picture that it shows in the Google search is the timestamp of when the actual picture was taken.
It has
So
yeah.
yeah, so there's a couple, you have to take a couple steps. So it said the ARV was 375. So I go on and I look at the comps. The house sold next door to it, exact same floor plan and everything, for 375, and it was in original condition. So I'm looking at this one from Google Earth, and one, the community, it was on a lake community. Two, which it was, no one told me. Two, there was what I could only see as a shop, and I don't know if it was an ADU or a second house. Maybe it was two houses, I don't know. But it looked like a shop to me, really nice shop. And so it said the auction was going to be the next morning at 10 a.m. So the auction price was starting at 120. The ARV was 375. So this platform I use is a two-step process. So you have to be the highest bidder on this system that I use. They take your bid to the auction house, to the trustee. And let's say, so on the internal platform, I bought a house recently, and the house, it was the exact same scenario. The ARV was 375. It was being listed at like 120. And I bid on the house 352. ARV 375, you got to pay 3 points just to get the house. So it's, if it's, I got it for 350, you're paying what, 10,500.
Yep.
Plus, if you use their loans, it's a 2% origination fee plus interest only. So the guy hits me back and he's like, "Are you crazy?" He's like, you're gonna bid 352, because I'm just trying to get them to take my bid to the auction house
Yep.
from their system. So if it ends up selling for 200,000, I get it for 200,000, which people don't understand that. But the way that this
This is why you're a
system,
lunatic.
yeah,
Your shit works.
yeah. So anyways, it works every time. So because I realized I was always bidding low on the internal platform, and then they were taking someone else's bid, and then it would sell for way less. So I'm like, basically, I'm just going to bid retail value, let them take my bid to the auction, and then everyone else at the auction will just walk away because they're not going to go that high. So they go to the auction, and I'm on the phone with the guy because he's like verifying that I'm for real. He's like, do you have the money, this and that? Like, I'm like, yeah, I got the money. I'm like, I can pay cash for it. He's like, well, what happens if it goes to 350? I'm like, well, then I don't know. I guess I'm like, I'll still buy it, but I don't want to. And I said, ultimately, I don't even want to buy this house anyways. I said, it's so far away from any main areas. It was 30 miles away from the last one I did, and I didn't even like going to that one. And so on the phone, he's like, dude, you just got the house for 200,000 bucks. And I was like, no way. And he's like, yep. I'm
But
like, okay,
first, hold
that's
on. You
cool.
tell him you said there was another bidder, and you said I'll give you 10 grand to leave or something,
Oh,
right?
no, no. So what I told him is, I said, if we get to 225,
Hmm.
I said, give whoever's there $5,000 to just stop bidding, which I don't think is legal. I don't know. I think it's legal at the trustee. I don't know if it's legal at the county.
Well,
So I'd have
but we heard this from, that's what they do at these steps. Like that's like
yes.
the thing they do.
Well, even back when the market crashed, there were, dude, people would show up with like 50 grand in the car just telling people to leave.
Yep.
Um, so well, another house that I got, the Sherwin one I just closed on, the guy, I was at like 300, and this other dude was there, and he said, "Hey, if I give you $10,000, will you stop bidding?" I said, "No, I'll give you." I said, "I didn't come here to make 10,000. I came here to make like 100." So I said, "I will pay you 10,000 to leave." And in that stupid negotiation, the price of the house went up 60,000 bucks,
Hmm.
which really pissed me off. So, anyways, I wrote him a check for 10,000 bucks, and he left. Um, So this one, I said, if it gets to 225, just pay whoever's there, offer him 5 grand. Cause I was like, this is a low bidding house anyways. Somebody would probably accept 5. And they're like, well, what if they offer you 5? And I was like, well, I'll do it for 10. I'll leave for 10. And so anyways, they said, you get it at 10, you got it at 200. So I was super stoked because this house is a good house. And there was You always want to get a preliminary title report also on these houses so you can see if there's any outstanding liens that they're not disclosing. Because I did buy another house one time and it had a second lien that they didn't disclose. That was
Yep.
a whole nother story that we can talk about on another
That
podcast.
was,
That turned into a legal battle.
you lawyered that up, or
Yep.
you're crazy.
Well, thankfully I acted quickly because I was able to get the overage held at the trustee account. But if I wouldn't have gotten involved as fast as I did, it would have turned into a giant mess and I could have lost $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so right after I closed on this house, literally like 2 seconds later, I got this text message and they're like, do you want to sell the house you just bought for 250? So they're like, someone else bid on it that didn't make it to the auction. I outbid him on the internal platform and they said he'll take the contract over for 250. And I said 250 plus fees or 250 and I have to pay the fees. So they said just call the guy and see what he wants to do. So I called him up and we agreed that we would do 250, split the fees. So essentially I made $45,000 net in about an hour's worth of work on that deal.
Dude, that is, yeah. When you text me, you're like, "Hey, this guy wants to buy for 250. Should I?" I didn't reply anything other than just capital yes, and I want a 10% commission.
Rachel was like, yes, too. But in my mind, I'm like, man, I know I can flip this house. I could probably sell it for 400.
Well, that's
And
why, because if somebody wants it for 250, then it plays with you like shit. Okay, what's
so,
up? Like,
well, okay. So this is what my mind thought was on that is the ARV was at 375.
yeah,
Wholesale deal is 70% value. So at 70%, it was 262.
yep,
So I was like 250 plus the fees is 262.
mm-hmm,
So he was prepared to go to 250, pay that. So that's why I thought he'd go to the fees. I think he would have paid full fees also.
yeah,
But I was like, the guy was super cool. He lived in the neighborhood also, and he
yep,
was satisfying my needs of not wanting to fly to another state.
yep,
You know, dude, I said it to the beginning. I told the auction guy, I don't even want this house. I'm just bidding on it because it's such a good deal.
dude. I know we need to find some more of those. We need to create a
Oh, they're out
powwow.
there. They're
No,
popping up, man. And they
I,
are popping up.
and that's got like we need to form a weekly team of that, meet up, looking and assessing these deals because you're right,
I
cash is
think
king.
I've been thinking about the best way to approach this situation because a lot of these people just bury their head in the sand. But what I realized is if you can get them when their head is like where they're about to like start choking, it's like once it's actually going to the auction is like when you have to get to them, not like all of the pre-foreclosure stuff.
Right.
It's almost when that default trust is signed, when they have that 4 month period to satisfy the lien.
You're talking the person in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I actually talked to this cold caller once, and I'm like, when you call these pre foreclosures, you just tell them, hey, I know you're going through a tough time pre foreclosure. He goes, no, it's the worst thing you can do. He goes, half these people don't even know they're in pre foreclosure, so now you're delivering the bad news to them,
Yep.
and you're the villain. He's like, dude, I just talked to him about getting an offer, and that's it. And I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you need it to be basically when that default notice is recorded at the county because now they've been served and they know. And I
Right.
think they're like crap in their pants.
But this also goes into, and we're almost up on time. Now we're talking about foreclosures in the market for, but that's what you said. This was the only house that sold out of hundreds. This is why like all the doom and gloomers talking about foreclosure rates are up 8 billion%. And there's like it's just yes, there is foreclosures. There's foreclosures in great markets too. And I don't fucking get how this guy owed 120,000 and he's in foreclosure. Like that's to me more
Well,
troublesome is that sellers don't even realize they could sell this thing and make 200 grand.
I know why
Of course
in
you
the
do.
situation. Do you want to know?
Duh. I don't not want to know.
Someone with the abbreviation on the back of the jacket, ICE, was knocking on the door. Immigration.
Gotcha.
So I think they just felt that they were just going to live in the house until that they got basically deported.
Wow, dude. I mean, that's kind of a one off, but it's not uncommon to see people with a lot of equity and quit paying payments and and then they get too stubborn and they'll lose it. That's the weird part to me.
Remember how I was showing you yesterday? There was a house by your old condo that was hitting the market. And I told you I thought it was going to revert.
Yep.
It did. So that's the thing is you can see the clear signs of when it's not going to go to auction. So this week there's been 66 houses on the block, and so far 40 of them have been canceled, and not one of them is sold.
Yep. Again, going to the point of like these foreclosure. it could be listed in foreclosure, but actually going through it is a whole nother.
Oh yeah.
And that situation you talk about of that other house that had the second lien that was in foreclosure, dude, they openly admitted to you that they're like, oh yeah, they're not going to do anything. Like this foreclosure thing doesn't mean shit. And then finally it did, and they were all like, whoa, they can actually do that.
Oh, they'd gone through the foreclosure process 4 times.
Yeah, and so they thought, oh, nothing's going to happen to us.
That's why some of these people become basically career criminals in the foreclosure world.
Yeah.
And it just, you know what happens is they get burnt out. And I think they just feel that they've gone through the process so many times that basically someone's not looking.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, dude. The bank's getting theirs.
They're looking.
That's why I'm saying that they're very strict now. And that's why the foreclosures are not hitting like they used to, because the banks just don't give money to anyone with the pulse anymore. They tie a lot of people up into these deals.
Yep. We are
So,
going to do you know all of this stuff. So real estate agents, if you want to know, with this NAR settlement coming in 2 days, we're going to do another podcast. But
oh no, well the not it's the last day to opt into the
to
settlement.
opt into it, so there's going to be a lot of news, and
Yep.
as you can tell, Jesse's up on it. So you guys are going to want to listen to that. But more importantly, the first half of this was my favorite. Talking about listing properties, and I love just being told what to do, and the way that you have the ability to list these things, you always know what it's going to sell for. It's really remarkable. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Well,
So
it was funny when I told my wife last night about the Braveheart house. I said, that's been through this house on the open house is going to buy this house. And then I sent her that text message
yep,
and she's like, how do you always know like these processes of like what's going to happen? I'm like, I just
it's
have
crazy.
one, I have a feeling, but two, I've been through it so many times.
Yep.
And I can
No,
tell like when people come through, I know what their reads are.
but you're just, yeah, that's your thing. You read situations of people like I've never seen anybody ever. It's crazy. That leads me to another podcast we're going to do. So you guys need to subscribe, follow along. I actually wrote down the top 10 listing objections, and I'm not even going to tell you what they are, and you have to object them
Okay. Oh,
loud.
on Saturday, this guy invited me to his house and he started hammering me, dude. I was
I
like,
know
this is
I
the
got
best
10 of
thing
them, and
ever.
I'm like, I ain't even going to tell them because I don't want you to script this. So it's what separates you guys too. This is who you can surround yourself with. Again, I know there's a lot of recruiters and shit out there, but it's for real. Like if you are serious about growing your business, and they always say who you surround yourself is where you're going to go. You can see that. So um, we wanted to create this podcast to get this knowledge off of Jesse's chest that he's always telling me going nowhere. But at the same time, if you want like his number, like his personal daily, talk to him and grow your business, you got to reach out to us about partnering with us. You can hit me up, info@jacksonwilkie.com. Both of us have the same email, jackson@realagentnow.com, jesse@realagentnow.com. There's a million ways to get up. Facebook message us, whatever. And then we're going to do those top 10 objections. And then we're also going to do the update on the who's opting into the NAR and a lot of other stuff. Please send us your questions, your lawsuits, your crazy, crazy, crazy situations, and we'll bring you on and Jesse can solve it. How about that?
Yep.
That will be sick. So until the next one, homies, we're going to catch you later.
Catch you later.